Liverpool. So we'll just dive right in if that's okay with everybody. Get my questions in front of me. So can you please each introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about what you do, and briefly summarise your journey into publishing? Shall we go with Javerya first, please?
Yeah, sure. I am the sales and marketing executive at Untitled Stories. I also am the subscriptions manager. Bit of a broad role, really. I do quite a lot of stuff with the company. I won't go into too much detail and bore everyone, but I've got a little bio on my website which you can have a look at. I have been working at Lendal Stories since 2019. I studied English literature and linguistics at university, and then actually applied for the publishing assistant role at Lendal Stories when I was in my last year of university, but didn't get it. One, because I was in my last year of university, and secondly, Enabong, who got the role, had some experience already in publishing. And then I finished university and did a fellowship at Granta in London for about 6-7 months. And then 2 weeks into it, I just emailed Stefan, the publisher, and the stories, and was like, oh my God, I'm at Granta, everyone knows you, everyone knows everyone. And then he was like, well, actually, Enabong's leaving to go to America. Do you want the job that you originally applied for in February? It's basically when my internship would finish. And I was like, well, yeah, sure. It was moving to Sheffield, so it was a bit of a decision, considering I was in London there at the time, and there was that whole idea that publishing is London centric. Anyway, I said yes, and that's it. I've been here since 2 years and 2 months, apparently. But yeah, that's me.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. We'll go to Paige next, please.
Oh, any excuse to talk about myself. So, hello, I'm Paige. I am a commissioning editor at Lendal Press, which I kind of launched last year as an imprint of Valley Press, which is based in Scarborough. I was quite lucky actually in that I'd kind of always been involved with a lot of publishing stuff from being quite young, probably when I was like 16, 17, I'm like 23 now. So I kind of did a lot to do with access. It was the more the kind of like sort of social justice side, a lot about library access and kind of access to literature and all that kind of thing. And then I went to uni, and I managed to kind of, again, just sort of get into kind of interesting projects that were around publishing. So I did stuff at Carcanet, and I did stuff with Found Fiction. And I also kind of started working for Valley Press, which was really cool. And then I sort of finished uni, didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to stay in the North. And based on the conversations I'd had with Jamie, who's the editorial director, we felt like it was kind of at a crossroads and we needed a new imprint to kind of launch a kind of new list, essentially. So again, I was quite lucky in that I managed to sort of make my own job. Basically, it was just like, I kind of want to do this and have this sort of list, based sort of specifically around Northern talent in the main, and a kind of different model, which I might get the chance to talk about. So I've been doing that for the last year, I think now. Yeah.
That's amazing, thank you. And then we'll go to Laura.
Oh, hi everyone. Yeah, so I'm here under my Dead Ink hat, based in Liverpool, but I'm actually based in Edinburgh. So I'm like super north, I guess. Not that it's a competition of, I'm more northern than you are in a different way. So my kind of journey was, I studied Stirling University. I did publishing studies, and I got a job at Saraband when they were based in Glasgow. I was an editorial marketing assistant with them for a while. And then I basically started my freelance career doing typesetting for a number of publishers. And then I kind of got a chip on my shoulder and went, I can do publishing better than all of you, so I'm going to start my own company. So I started 404 Inc. That's always, you know, the best way to start your own thing is basically having a chip on your shoulder about it. But it went really well. So we've been doing that since 2016 now, I think. And only in the last 4, maybe 5 months, I've been working as interim publisher at Dead Ink while Nathan, who is the usual director, is away on leave. So I've kind of just inherited a company to run while I'm still running my own company, and I'm still doing typesetting for places like Knights of and Charcoal Press, a few places like that. I'm also on the board of Publishing Scotland, which kind of manages all the members of the Scottish membership of publishing. It's kind of in the name, Publishing Scotland. You can kind of get the gist of what it's about. So yeah, that's kind of everything that I do.
You sound very busy.
Yes, I'm very tired, but it's okay.
So next, can you each introduce the book that you will be showcasing? So the whole point of this event is to show the behind the scenes of indie publishing. So tell us a bit about the book that you'll be showcasing and just a little bit of what it's about before we dive into it.
I think it's me. I hope everyone's actually seen this book because I've been trying to make sure that it's been seen everywhere. This is How We Come Back Stronger, which is a collection of intersectional feminist writers. It actually comes out next week on the 23rd of March. And it's a collection of essays, fiction, poetry, and just writers from all backgrounds on this side of the world and over on like the other side of the sea, so the US, talking about how COVID in 2020, so the first lockdown, impacted women and their experiences going through it. So there's like diary entries, and they're really sharp and really fresh, and things that you wouldn't have heard before, but also things that you can really relate to. And you can sort of dip in and out of each little collection piece. It's really good. I mean, I can talk about it for ages and I'm going to try not to, but we have a little excerpt on our ampersand blog on our website if anyone's interested in having a look, and you can pre-order it. Little plug.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I know that Jess is probably down in the Q&A function giving everybody the links, so don't worry about that. Paige, do you want to tell us a little bit about your Lendal Press book?
I don't know how I can follow that. That was really good. So the book I wanted to talk about is Life on Other Planets by Matt Cook. Why it kind of attracted me initially was it sort of sits between two genres. In some ways it's quite commercial, it's a coming of age. It deals with sort of family saga, but at the same time it's very sort of black comedy, kind of surreal comedy, very sort of like Julia Davis, Nighty Night sort of thing. So I think that was what sort of got to me. It's basically about a 14-year-old boy. It's quite bleak. It's a 14-year-old boy and he goes to his auntie's house clearance in some like northern seaside town, which seems quite basic. And then they all kind of find out the aunt was a little bit insane and she was part of a cult, and she's left all of her money. She turned out to be like properly rich. She leaves all of her money to this like space cult in America, and hilarity ensues. And it's quite interesting because it kind of connects this sort of 14-year-old's perspective of sort of what he's kind of trying to work out about his identity and kind of how he wants to live his life. And at the same time, he sees all these weird letters and photographs that his auntie was kind of dealing with. That was also her exploration of identity as an 80-odd-year-old woman. So I think from a thematic perspective, it was really interesting. Matt's a Northwest-based writer, so I was instantly like, yes. And I think the attraction was that, like I say, that connection between genres where it's sort of partly commercial, but also it has this kind of depth and this really kind of unique comedic aspect to it. So that's why I love it, and everyone should love it too.
It sounds really good. Sounds really interesting.
It's a little bit batshit in parts, but it's that I like that sort of thing.
We love that. And then Laura, your book, please.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about The Hierarchies by Roz Anderson. This is a book that Dead Ink's actually bought in from the US, so it's already been released last year by Penguin, and we bought the rights, and it's going to be our lead title this year. It's coming out in June, so we don't have any proofs yet. I have nothing to show you, so hopefully somebody will link to the Dead Ink website where it is there. That book is about sentient robots who live by the rules of the hierarchies, and they exist in a society that's somewhat in the future, where there are people who are born and people who are created, the tensions that exist between those two in the society. And we look at all of this through the eyes of one sentient robot called Sylvie, and she is effectively bought, and she is stored in an attic in a family's house, and she is allocated a husband, capital H, which he can do whatever he wants with. And you can imagine, as tales often go with sentient robots, they start to get consciousness, they start to get ideas, they start to have feelings, and they start to realize what situations they're in. So as you can imagine, as it goes, she starts to look out the window, she starts to see families existing and wondering why she can't have a life like that herself. And she may or may not escape that house and find a new life elsewhere. And we follow her on that journey. It's basically been, described like a classic feminist dystopian fiction. Hopefully it's going to become a classic. We'll see. But yeah, that was just really interesting to me to pick up, because I didn't have any say in commissioning. Obviously, I came into Dead Ink quite late. This year had already been commissioned, so it's been really interesting to kind of catch up with this and get a feel for the book and why it fits well with Dead Ink's kind of output. So I'm interested to talk about that and how I've been involved in it in a late stage.
Yeah, no, definitely. So we've got 3 really different books there, and all from different perspectives, which is really, really great. So we'll dive into kind of the main juicy part, which is, what role did you have in the book's creation? By role, we know obviously with indie presses, you do not have one small role. You're coming into it at lots of different points. So kind of what points did you come into the project, whether right from the beginning, in the middle, or the end? What kinds of roles did you have, and what tasks have you been doing?
I was going to start with that same line, which was, as an indie press, the roles are a bit blurred, really. So as much as my title is sales and marketing, I pretty much have been working on this book from the beginning, and will be working on it going forward since a past pub date too. So this has been an interesting one, because we're working with Feminist Press in the US because they have the US rights, and then the Feminist Book Society who edited it and put the whole collection together, and then have the contacts with the authors. So it's all been a bit like a completely different experience to all the other books that we've published. But I've worked on the sales side, so collaborating with our sales reps, making sure they know about the book and that it is our lead title and that it needs to be everywhere. And then in turn, collaborating with Waterstones, foils, indie bookshops, all that good stuff. Also sorted out some marketing stuff, social media assets. We did postcards for it. We did like special packages for Instagrammers and Bookstagrammers and all those lovely people, and help with like making decisions on production, things like that, things for our blog, our website, for basically a little bit of everything is what I've worked on. It's been really, really interesting. Less on the author side of it, because there's so many different authors. So I've mostly been collaborating with Feminist Book Society as the spokesperson for all of the authors, and they will take things away and speak to the authors about it. So yeah, I think that's...
How did the collaboration kind of come about with the Feminist Book Society?
They actually pitched us the book. So Feminist Book Society, they have don't know what happened to my voice there. But they do events with Waterstones. Well, they did pre-COVID, where they do little panel events with authors and a few other people and do discussions, and it was like pretty much sold out every single time that they had them. So they had the connection with the writers and artists already, and they realized that this was something important and needed to be known about. So they got in touch with us, and then we realized that actually it would be, because it's such a big book and so important, and we've got authors from both sides of the Atlantic, that we needed to sort of collaborate with someone. So we chose Feminist Press, which it fits in with their ideas as much as it does with ours. So that was pretty much how it started.
And you mentioned how it kind of, the process of working like this is different to how you would normally kind of work at And Other Stories. Can you just give us a bit of insight into how this is different and how normally you would have a different kind of relationship with authors and things?
So for example, for a book that we only have UK rights for, we wouldn't usually, like, I wouldn't usually speak to the US publisher because I wouldn't have anything to do with them. It would either come from them to us, or they'd have it and do their sort of stuff and have different pub dates. So it's been interesting collaborating with them, making sure that we have similar messaging, or like we share assets, or they'll do stuff for Amazon that we can use and things like that. So that's been good. And then working with Feminist Book Society is just like another partner in the group when there's already different people involved. So just making sure everyone's on the same page. So we have like many Google Docs and spreadsheets and email chains that are like 15, 20 emails long, where it's like, have you done this? Have a look at this kind of thing. So it's been different, but really interesting and exciting. So we've had meetings where everyone's really excited about the book, and we're all talking about all the things that we're getting involved in, which, as you know, I like a chat, so you can imagine the team also likes a chat, and they always go over like an hour. So we spend a lot of time talking about the books and things that we want to do. So yeah, but usually I don't really deal with the authors. It's usually our editor who talks to them, and the production person. I just get on with the sales and deal with the sales teams and things. So
yeah, amazing. Shall we go over to Paige now?
Yes, we can. So I didn't actually directly edit this one. I want to kind of repeat what Javerya said, in that this was actually a lot more of a collaborative book. So because I don't know if I mentioned originally, but Matt had been shortlisted. I think he was in like the final 3 for WowFest's sort of pulp idol competition, which is quite a big thing in the sort of Northwest. And so he approached us originally with kind of 3-4 chapters that had been finalised. So it was kind of a bit of my job to, I suppose, work out how we can develop that. I didn't work directly on kind of the actual close edits or anything like that, but I was involved in those initial conversations about why don't you do this, why don't you do that, which was really fun actually, because I'd only ever really been an editorial assistant. I much prefer the more creative, like, and you could do this thing and you could do this thing, and going a little bit mad. So I really loved that. And yeah, like I say, it was quite collaborative. So because it had been from WowFest, we were kind of keen from the beginning to sort of produce it in a way that was aligned with the fact it was sort of Northwest, Northern generally, indie publishing. So we're kind of doing events with them. So I was kind of from the very beginning of commissioning it, working out how we could sort of organise events with them. What else did I do? I think another big thing was the marketing side of it was quite a big one, because like I think I mentioned at the beginning, it kind of sits between 2 genres. We didn't really want to isolate either audience, and we kind of wanted to sort of bring in as big of a range as possible. We were kind of discussing in some ways how it's a little bit Ben Lernery-esque, but then also it's this kind of quintessentially British, quite commercial sort of thing. So it was kind of a big part of my job was actually working out how we want to pitch it. And so a lot of my job was working with Impress, who are our sales agency. I think they're probably the sales agency for a lot of people here. And it was kind of chatting with them about the cover and how we kind of want to do the cover. Interestingly, on this one as well, it was one of the first covers we designed as an imprint, and I was kind of keen to have everything kind of sort of uniform-ish. I like order, so it was kind of a way of setting up what kind of designs we wanted, and how we kind of wanted all of the sort of list to look coherently. So I was kind of had a close eye on the book itself, but a lot of it was actually thinking outwards in terms of how we want to do events, how we want to collaborate, how we want to kind of put our own stamp on all of our books. So it's kind of having an eye on the sort of minor stuff as well as thinking kind of bigger picture, long-term stuff. But that was a learning curve, but it was really interesting.
Yeah, no, exactly. I liked how you were talking about kind of making Lendal Press's titles all kind of be kind of in your image, in the Lendal Press image. And it's a bit like what Laura pointed to before about Dead Ink. You kind of have to really hone in on what you're good at and what stands out to your imprint. On that, Lendal Press's tagline is "Publishing the Revolution," with a focus on transparency, diversity, and opportunity. Can you give us a bit more detail about this mission statement and why you think this title kind of fits in with that?
Yeah, so it's kind of quite interesting. It sort of goes back to why we set Lendal up. So I was having a lot of conversations with Jamie where we were getting really angry at bigger publishers so we've had a few authors at Valley who've had quite big success at that sort of indie level. There's always like a gem where they just do really weirdly well. And they were going, as they do, to bigger publishers and kind of saying, look, I did this thing really well. And they weren't really getting anywhere with it. So that was really frustrating to us. But at the same time, Valley Press as a kind of a smaller northern indie was also struggling to take on that kind of new talent that might be a bit risky. So we were kind of beginning to rely on authors we'd worked with several times where there was an established audience. We'd kind of become known for publishing sort of certain poets and certain authors. And so we were kind of having a go at the big four, but then also doing the exact same thing because it works, that's why. So everyone kind of does it as much as northern indies will kind of have certain values. The financial practicalities are as such that you have to publish things you know are going to sell. So I kind of said, well, I've seen the likes of Unbound and things like that doing crowdfunding. Could we do a kind of hybrid approach where we put forward most of the money and the rest comes from grants or crowdfunding or things like that? And we can kind of manage that from our end. So it's not a case of where the authors are actually trying to kind of invest all this money and see kind of what different works we get submitted. And it's been really interesting. You get a lot of authors who have maybe had established success but want a kind of change of tack, and so they kind of come to us because we'd be willing to take that risk, whereas a bigger publisher would probably be like, no, you can do that thing that you're known for doing. So that's been really exciting. I'd say that Matt's title fits into that. First of all, it's that kind of, it's the northern thing. I hate repeating it because it's so cliche. But I think it's certainly that kind of northern factor. The themes are very northern. It's about a kind of failing seaside town, a sort of young boy from the south returning to that place where his dad grew up and sort of seeing the decline. I'm from Newcastle, if no one could tell. And I've sort of seen that happen in places like Whitley Bay and the kind of coast and stuff like that. So that kind of really appealed to me. And I suppose it was that sense that Matt had already had established connections to networks that were about transparency and diversity. So Wildfest, he's done a lot of kind of writers, sort of writing lessons, that sort of thing for people as part of their networks. So it kind of felt like a natural fit in a way.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, that's really, really interesting. I guess it's kind of like what Javerya was saying in a similar way of like you're collaborating with people who have similar values to what your publisher stands for. Yeah, so I really like that. Laura, can we go on to you?
Yeah, sure. So like I said, I kind of came into Dead Ink at a time when the 2021 list had been already decided, commissioned, so I didn't need to do any commissioning jobs. It was just a matter of making sure all the books got published and published really well. So when I came to the hierarchies, it was a case of, right, check if we're happy with the cover, see, do we have the final manuscript? And we didn't have the final manuscript yet, so we needed to get that from Penguin, because obviously they had the proofread, the copy edited, the full final copy, but they had it in PDF and they sent that, and I was like, can I have the InDesign files, please, so I could typeset it? And they're like, oh yes, but that'll be £500, please. We're like, no, I'll just make do with the PDF. So that was an interesting learning curve. I didn't realize they were quite that expensive to get. So I had to typeset from a PDF, and anybody who knows about typesetting will know that's a nightmare. Anybody that doesn't, I'm telling you, it's nightmare. So it's had many rounds of proofreading, typesetting by me, more proofreading. I'm proofreading it again this week. I think it's at a clean stage at last. I mean, we're converting it from US to UK spelling, and that takes a few rounds of proofing. So it's been mainly proofing, but also probably the more fun side of things has been the cover, because the cover is so stark. Like if you look it up, it's bright pink, and there was initially like a toy bird on it that was kind of orangey and red, and I had a meeting with the agent and Roz, the author, and our publicist Jordan, and we all decided to change the bird. So now it's bright blue, and it's quite nice that I got to do that, because I found like a really kind of janky looking bird and I did some really rough photoshopping. Like it was like a totally different color, and I just overlaid it with blue. It was really crass and terrible looking, and sent it to the designer going, does this make sense? And he was like, yes, let me fix that for you. Fixed it up, and now, yeah, so that's kind of like, that's my thumbprint on the book. That was my input, because I sent it. I almost forgot to send it to Nathan, to the person that actually controls the company, and go, oh, by the way, is this okay that I've changed your cover? And he was like, yeah, fine, that's cool. So that was a relief to hear. But other than that, it has just been a case of those rounds and rounds of typesetting, and luckily, like I mentioned, it's coming out in June, so we have some time yet, and the proofs have only just gone to print. But part of the joys, and I think you're going to ask later about kind of the highlights of the process, so I don't want to spoil my answer for that too much, but if anybody knows of Jordan Taylor-Jones, who's like a freelancing publicist, he is amazing. And getting to work with him is a real joy. I think if I did this totally on my own, I would have gone mad. So thankfully, with him doing the book is a real joy, even when I have to retypeset it for the third time. But it's all good. That's part of the process.
Yeah, no, that sounds like such hard work, but hopefully it will pay off for you. What's your experience been of joining Dead Ink at this point, and how does it kind of differ to the way you do things at 404 Ink?
There's, as you can expect, a lot of similarities and a lot of differences. It's been really nice to actually work with different people, and using a lot of the similar skills I already have from running my own company, but also try to take a step back and go, when you run your own thing, like Paige was saying, you get to kind of go a bit crazy and go, well, I decide to do this. I'm just going to do this and see what happens. I mean, I have a business partner at 404 Ink, but we tend to be pretty much on the same page on most things. We agree on mostly everything. But with Dead Ink, I kind of have to take a step back and go, well, this isn't my company to make a decision for. I need to be careful in what I'm doing. So there's a lot of second guessing. There's a lot of like consulting with other people. But it's also a joy that I get to know a bigger part of the community as well, because, like I say, most of my experience is in Scottish publishing. Though I'm technically English. I was born in England. I just haven't been there for a while. So it's nice to kind of go back to the old roots and go, hey, please accept me. Please help me with this publishing project. And I've been in talks with BioFest recently, and it's been really nice to make those new connections. But generally, like day to day, it's pretty similar. You kind of, you're on your own. You're making big scary decisions, but it feels good. It's I'll admit it's a lot running two companies at the same time. Like I try to do Dead Ink on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and 404 Ink and my freelancing on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I try not to work on the weekend, but lately I just have to. It's impossible to avoid, which I don't encourage. I'm a big advocate of the good work-life balance, but I can't. It's don't do what I say, not as I do.
Classic.
Yeah.
So funny. I'm going to actually put the next two questions kind of in together, because I think they go quite hand in hand. So if you could each tell me what your highlight of publishing your title is, and also your kind of any challenges that you faced. Obviously in the last year, like we've all been remotely working, and all sorts of challenges will have cropped up in publishing a book. So if you could kind of go through the highlights and challenges, that would be really great.
Okay, the highlights I think for me were I sorted out the galleys for this book, and then sorted out some of the people who it went to, and then once they got them and they were talking about it and getting excited, I was like, oh, finally, like it's there, it is good, people are talking about it, it's great, it'll be fine. So that was really lovely. And also they're donating 20% of the cover price for this book, so it's good. Once the sales started coming in, I was like, okay, it's going to be a good thing, the money's going to go somewhere, it's going to help all of these people, it's all of this effort that we put in for months and months, and these meetings that we've been having, it's finally worth it. So that's been a really lovely highlight, and the book is beautiful, which is going to take me on to our the difficulties was everyone's been talking about covers, but we as a small team we all get involved in the cover process, but we had a whole discussion about how the book will sit on a book table in a shop, but since shops were closed, how do we also make sure that it looks nice digitally, because the colour systems are different for both printing and digitally sometimes, and they don't appear the same. So that was a lot of back and forth. Happy to say it was finally resolved, and the book is beautiful, and it has really lovely features on it, so will look beautiful online and in the shops. But that was different. And also, just in like normal times, I guess we would have had meetings with our UK team and Feminist Book Society in person to discuss things, and it would have been completely different to how we had it, where it's like trying to fit in meetings online, and they all work full-time jobs too, so it was trying to coordinate with them, because Feminist Book Society is sort of like a part-time thing for all of them. So it was making sure that we all knew what we were doing, but trying to keep on top and make sure they knew what was going on, and that they were involved as they possibly could be, since it was their baby as much as it was ours, as is ours even. Yeah, I think those were my things. Otherwise, I think since we've been working at home for almost a year now, it almost didn't feel too different in terms of challenges in that sense. But yeah, that's me.
Yeah, oh, that's amazing. That's great. We'll go to Paige next.
I would say I'm very similar to Javerya in that I think the biggest problem was the design. Like, we'd used the design's lovely now, but we'd used a designer originally who is quite well known and has done beautiful covers, and the author was quite enthusiastic about using that. I was just sort of like, yeah, that's fine. I have this weird attitude where I'm really fine with things, and then 5 minutes later I'm like, no, why did we do that? So we'd kind of used this designer, it just wasn't really working, the concept wasn't quite right. And then our full-time designer, Peter Barnfather, joined us, who works for Platypus Press as well, that's his press. And it kind of just clicked. But I think that was probably the biggest learning curve, and that I was normally used to kind of people dealing with the covers, and I was just like, oh, that's nice. And suddenly I was kind of having to offer constructive criticism, and I almost didn't know what to critique. And I had to sort of learn basically overnight how to kind of see that that designer wasn't working, what direction we needed to take, and how we kind of could sort of conceptualize. I sort of vaguely manage the designer that we have, so I'm sort of involved with, I suppose, actually setting up the concept, while I'm by no means a designer, kind of coming up with that sort of basic how it'll sort of look on the page. So I'd say that was both the highlight and the challenge in some ways, like, because it's paid off. I think the cover's brilliant, but I was never used to that kind of back and forward about design, because I was normally immune to it. Did you mention working from home, Kate?
Yeah.
I really like it. Like, I think this sounds really bad because everyone's like, oh, I love being in the office. I really like just working on my own. Like, it's only child syndrome. I just really like being on my own sometimes. So I think I miss the sort of discussion. I think that's what I probably miss. I miss being able to go, is this right? Or kind of just be able to sort of challenge each other if someone's not too sure or you're not too sure. That lack of reassurance about things, or lack of kind of opinion, is quite difficult at times, but equally it sort of allows you to focus in some ways. I think you've kind of got to be adaptable to a point and kind of work in any situation, whether it's an office or whether you're in your house, basically.
Yeah, no, definitely. I really agree. Laura, now please, your highlights and challenges.
Yeah, I've kind of mentioned already the challenges and the practicalities, and so one I didn't mention was the timetables potentially shifting, because obviously we have a list, we have the publication date set, we're kind of hoping that bookshops will be open at this point and we'll get a certain amount of publicity by this point. Some of it hadn't happened. I mean, for us over January, it wasn't just a pandemic, but then obviously also Brexit and snow knocked one of our titles completely off schedule, and it's ridiculous to have to email the author and say snow happened, so we need to push everything back a little bit. So it was kind of about making sure that didn't happen to the hierarchies, and then luckily it being in June we're okay. Just a few titles before that had to get knocked back, making sure that book was still there as our lead title was quite important, and luckily it is still there, and that's fine. But at the same time, we're also releasing Test Signal in June, which is a new anthology celebrating Northern writers. And I've been typesetting that as well at the same time as this. And with Test Signal, we're working with Bloomsbury on that. So there's a whole nother team I have to work with. So while I'm, working quite locally and focused on the hierarchies and making sure that's on time, at the exact same time, a book is coming of a arguably bigger scale, and we have a whole nother team, a whole nother publisher I need to be coordinating with to make sure that happens. So making sure everything stays on time is a huge challenge for this title and just in general, and especially during the pandemic. But it's funny, talking about all of this, it's actually really hard to identify a specific highlight. I'd probably say I have to repeat myself and be like, putting my thoughts on the cover and kind of going, hey Nathan, this is the cover now, and he's like, yeah, sure, fine. I'm like, cool, I have confidence in myself and confidence in what I'm doing. And if you didn't get the hint with I mentioned typesetting is a big part of my freelance work, so I really enjoy it, and I'm getting a chance to get a bit creative with it in this. So in the next few weeks I'll be working on that, and I'm looking forward to that, and I hope I can make it a bit special. It's really interesting when it previously has been published by Penguin, so you get to see their design and kind of go, well, how much of this do I want to kind of take influence from? How much do I want to ignore? It is a very technical process, but it's also quite creative if you allow yourself to be and you have the time. So maybe selfishly, I've been trying to make sure that book stays on course, so I have plenty of time to play with it and make it look good, just the way I want it to.
Yeah, no, definitely. That sounds really great. Thank you for telling us that. I'm going to jump onto a question because I feel like a lot of people on here will kind of want your input on this. And then we're going to leave 10 minutes at the end just for any questions that have popped up in the Q&A. What advice would you give to job seekers looking for their first role in publishing, particularly in the North at the moment?
I know I was supposed to be prepared for this, but suddenly that took me off guard. Oh, that's an intro. Gosh, it's a difficult time because I know friends that are applying for jobs right now, and it's not just applying for publishing in the North. It's because of the pandemic and things that has completely changed the landscape, and it's not the same as it was pre-pandemic. So it's quite difficult to give advice I would have given initially. Compared to now, although I have been seeing more, because of the pandemic, seeing more opportunities for remote work, even if it is, some of them are remote work now, and then you'll go into the London offices later, which is a bit like, okay. But there's still opportunities to do that kind of stuff, and also remote internships, which some of them look amazing, which wasn't a thing before, and I think it's really important, especially for people who are in the North, and it is quite difficult to have to travel to London and places like that, and to be able to still work for those publishers but stay at home and save money and then decide what you want to do and where you want to be. Because I do think having some sort of experience at a publisher is handy, just to get a sense of which department you want to work for. It's cool with an indie because you get to work with everything and everyone, but at some point you do have to decide where you want to go. So I'd say keep an eye out for internships and things like that, and also maybe ask for remote, because it's a possibility to do remote work. It doesn't hurt to ask the question and see if they can make it happen. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going with for now.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Paige, have you got any tips?
I think I'm a big fan of what I'd call basic bitch advice, that you get on Instagram. I basically feel like as long as you're kind of aware of what your actual skills are and your values and sort of what you can actually genuinely bring to a team and kind of genuinely believe that, I think people kind of pick up on that. It's a very competitive industry, yeah, but I think there's this sort of feeling amongst job seekers where you just think you're really inadequate and there's so much competition and what's the point? And I think everyone at any career stage has been there where they're just like, I really don't think I'm kind of going to sort of make a break in this. But actually, if you kind of really hone in on what your sort of unique proposition is, then I think the good people kind of think, oh yeah, he or she is the right person for the job. I think that's my advice.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think as well, I'm like a huge fan of social media for kind of getting your name and your brand and your skills out there. And I literally got
DMing people is so handy. Like, I've DM'd so many random people over the years, and then they kind of come through when you might need something from them. So kind of pursuing those connections is really handy.
Yeah, definitely. Laura?
I think everybody's touched on everything, but all I can offer is some kind of what I hope it might be comforting or worrying, I don't know, but even a year ago I was planning on hopefully applying for bigger jobs that I could do alongside for Ink. So I think actually I did email mid last year a job that was up. It might have been at Unbound or somewhere similar to that, because they were advertising. I thought, oh, surely everywhere is working from home, and they were like, no, this is you still need to be kind of in the area. And I was like, oh, okay. So which is not great, and that kind of confirmed to me that there's still a problem in publishing. There's still very London centric, not really. Even now, it's still the assumption that we're all going to go back to offices. I've never really worked in an office, so maybe I'm spoiled, and I love working from home too much, and that's maybe why I've kind of invested so much in, like Paige was saying, like your skills are so important. If you have something tangible and something that you can work on and improve, and something that crucially that you enjoy, that's a huge thing. Like I said, when I was working as editorial marketing assistant at Saraband, and that's where I learned that I preferred production and I preferred typesetting, and I've worked on that ever since, and finding that skill has been really valuable. And I still today I'm trying to keep an eye out for skills that I might have, things I might have interest in that will future-proof my career, because I'm not taking any of this for granted. All of this in my head, it's like all this could disappear at any time. So I want to make sure I'm prepared, and that my CV is not going to go out of date. So that's not really advice. That's more just still even now, I feel you. Like it's a very difficult industry to break into, and even when you're still within it, and if you want to move a little bit, that's still really difficult. So I feel for you.
Yeah, I totally feel that. I'm going to invite Jess back if she wants to pop up and just update us on the Q&A, everything Q&A.
Yeah, there's been so many great questions coming in that we definitely won't have chance to get round to answering, but hopefully we'll be able to answer some of these on our social media over the next few days, and I'm sure our panelists will be happy to do some follow-up questions as well for the ones we don't get round to. Some of them have been quite similar, so I wanted to start with one which I think is a quite nice one. What's one of the pluses of working at an indie press that you might not have got from working for a bigger one? Is there anything that you feel you've really got out of your role from an indie that if you'd had the same role at a bigger publisher, you might not have had the chance to do?
I think my biggest one would be you get a real insight into the different departments, but also you kind of have a say in things too. Like we get to make decisions on what covers are put on things and how the font should look, and especially when we're in the office, like things would come around and you're busting, and you get to have an input in like almost all parts of the process. And when the book comes, it feels like it's your baby as much as it is everyone else's, and you can really be proud of the product that you've like created. So I think that's my biggest thing.
The silence isn't because I don't enjoy indie publishing. I'm just thinking. I'm like,
Silence was deafening.
Time in my life. I think again a really similar answer. I think it's the level of responsibility you can take on, which is a blessing and a curse in some sense. It's quite easy to kind of say to your boss, because they're not really that high sort of above you. You can say, can I have a try at that? Am I able to kind of do this, or can I learn? Can you chat to me about what this entails? I've never heard of that before. And I think that's, yeah, like I say, it can be a little bit intimidating when you're thrown in, because you kind of are expected to sort of know a little bit about everything, which might be the case at bigger publishers, I guess. but everything kind of merges into one. So having a really good knowledge of the general sort of process is something I wish I'd kind of had an understanding of. I was so focused on editorial, I was like, I know nothing about anything else. And then actually you have to think about loads of different things. But it's nice to be able to kind of have a close-knit team where sort of you can share your own ideas and it's not seen as kind of acting sort of too uppity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Laura, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I was thinking actually community, the independent publishing community is valuable, and it's always something that I find comfort in knowing that's there. It's like I always feel a bit cringy when there are awards putting indie publishers against each other, because I'm like, oh, but we're in the same place and we're trying as hard as each other, and it's not fair to do that. But we're also different, and yet we all share so many things, and we are aware of each other's struggles, and I like to think we celebrate each other's successes as well. I feel like that's something that potentially the bigger publishers don't have. I don't know, haven't worked with a huge publisher, but I like to think that that's something special to us.
Yeah, I love that. There's been quite a lot of people interested, Laura, in your move from typesetting to setting up sort of independently, and as well for Paige. How was that? There's been a lot of questions coming in, but which ones sort of really stood out? Like how did you have to have a change in mindset to do that, to make that change and to take on that bigger role?
I probably stopped drinking more than normal.
Yeah.
It was a massive change. I'd went from being like a sort of 20-odd-year-old just kind of pissing around with editorial and being like, oh, I want to edit books for a living. And I ended up with a role with massive responsibility, which is a massive privilege, especially given the fact that I'm from the North, properly working class background. It's a massive privilege, but equally it's scary not necessarily being trained. It's not like a job like accountancy where you get told this is exactly what happens, off you go. You really have to figure stuff out. Like even now stuff comes up and I'm just like, I don't know how to deal with this. And I think probably quite senior people have that as well. So I'd say if you're a very like confident person, go for it. But if you have any sort of like fragility of mental health, then maybe it's not the best idea. I don't know. I say that I love what I do, but it's a massive risk at the same time, I guess.
That's where I'd probably add that's where a partnership really helps. So hopefully if one of you is having a bad mental health day, the other one can kind of keep everything afloat. Yeah. It's a bit difficult. It's difficult when you both burn out. That definitely happened at 404 Ink. We both had to take a few months off because it was just a bit too much. But yeah, you asked about like for me the typesetting. My kind of move was a little bit sneaky in that I kind of, I'd done a bit of typesetting, but not that much. And less sneaky, that me and Heather said from the very beginning when we started the publishing company, if it didn't work out, at least it would be something on our CV that would hopefully get us a good job in the future. So we were always very aware of the skills that we were going to be learning as we did, running a company. And that was the same for me with typesetting. So it meant that I got to typeset all of our books. So I got more practice, got to typeset really different books, which then just increased my my client base, and it's kind of rolled on from there. So that's where my advice would be, if you have any kind of inkling of starting up something, look at the many pros that could come from it. And even if it might not quite get to the heights that you want, at least the experience you'll get from it could be really valuable.
That's so good. I'm sure that you've inspired a lot of people. There seems to be a lot of people on here tonight interested in setting up on their own, and really pleased to hear your stories. So that's been great. Excellent. I wanted to end tonight on more of a fun question. So what are all the members of the panel reading at the moment outside of work, and what can you recommend to people?
Actually, I don't think about a book because I don't think I read anything outside of work. The last book I read that I really enjoyed was Where the Crawdads Sing, and that was on holiday in August. Oh no, I read The Midnight Library. So when I read stuff outside of work, it has to be almost completely apart from what I'm doing, reading, like the stuff that I'm reading at work, because I need, like, sometimes you just need a brain break. But I think those two, and I would actually recommend Where the Crawdads Sing. I keep looking over to it just to check that it's still there for some reason. But that one I would highly recommend, and that's been quite good.
That's good.
What am I reading? I love like really like hard-boiled crime. Like, I'll come out and say it. I act like I love really literary books, but give me like a woman has died, her husband's in the frame, like just love it. So what am I'm reading a book called The Guest List at the minute. It's about like a posh wedding, but there's like underlying problems. It's great. Yeah, that's all I have to offer on that.
Thank you, it sounds good.
I'll put my hands up and say that last year I read 2 books. This year I've read none. I don't know when I'm next going to be able to read a book that's not work. I'm really sorry, guys. But so the one I'm going to recommend, that my favorite book of last year, of the 2 books I read, was Boy Parts by Eliza Clark, from Influx. Yeah, even though I can't mention that because they have a rivalry with Dead Ink, but I still have to put my hands up and go, just amazing book. Everybody needs to read it. I'm not even going to mention anything about it because I don't want to spoil anything, so just go check it out.
Thank you. Well, we've had so many questions come in, so massive apologies to all the ones that we've not been able to answer tonight. We also did have a small problem with the captioning, but this event has been recorded and we will be releasing a full transcripted captioned version for anyone who needs that or would like to watch it again with captions. So thank you, and we will put a link into the chat box to sign up to our newsletter so that you can keep in touch with SYP North, and we've got quite a few events in the pipeline coming up soon, so we really hope that we can welcome some of you back for more events and hopefully later in the year for ones in person. So huge thank you to our panelists, and also a massive thank you to Kate for her fantastic chairing of this event. And I hope everyone's enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.